We can get started. Right. Welcome, everyone. Today we have Xiaolong Wang visiting us from UCSD. He's an assistant professor in the ECE department and a visiting professor at NVIDIA. So he received his PhD from CMU and then spent some time at Berkeley as a postdoc. And his research focuses on the intersection between computer vision and robotics, specifically around representation learning from videos and physical robot interaction data. He's won all the awards that can be won, and he does some of the most exciting work on humanoid robotics, manipulation, locomotion, sim-to-real. It's really a pleasure to have him here today. So
thank you.
Please take it away.
Thank you, Abhishek, for the introduction. Thank you for inviting me here. So I'm Xiaolong, and this actually was my house. So we recently bought a new one. But this was what it looks like 1 year ago. So my daughter was around 2 years old on that point. And then that's kind of an everyday life we are facing. So that actually inspired me to do a demo at home. So this is basically, you will see a unitary robot basically doing some pick and place, but actually also with some whole body control as well. I call this is a toy example in the sense that A is picking up toys, and B is actually simpler than it is in real. So basically we stage a little bit, right? So it was much more messy. So as we are doing these experiments, so obviously my daughter was focusing on Peppa Pig, so it's all fine. Actually it doesn't intimidate her at all. As we are doing this experiment, having this robot at home doing these things, we do realize that the robot is a bit too large. So essentially, it looks fine in the living room, but then as you're walking along the hallways, it's actually almost take the whole hallways, and then it's pretty huge. The quarterback robots. So then what do we do? So basically you can buy a larger house, which we end up did, but not for the robot, but for a bigger backyard. But that's not relevant. But then the other thing we think is basically that is more realistic to do is basically to squeeze your robot a little bit. So that's why we kind of maybe a motivation that we can do humanoid robots. So essentially, it's pretty slim. It can be very, very slim, and then it has many functions. And then when we talk about robot with legs, then there's always arguments that why do you not use wheels? Why do you actually use legs? So why don't you do this like wheel-based robots? Why do we care even like with arms and legs? There's so many complexity and degree of freedom. So I would say, actually, at least from what we have been doing, and then the progress in the community, locomotion is really almost close to working. And whenever something is close to working, I think it's actually a good place to do research. Then you will make it work, right? So I come from a vision background, right? So a lot of work that basically. I work with Kai-Min as well, so a lot of things he did is basically make something that is almost working become working, and then that's where you make the highest impact. So I think this is a position that we can make a highest impact that is almost working, and then to make it work. And then it is actually, even for the wheel-based robot, it's surprisingly very large. So we have purchased some of these robots, not exactly the same, but then essentially a wheel, but then it's quite tall. The wheel base kind of need to be very huge to make the robot to maintain the balance to do many things. So actually, humanoid robots still have the advantage to operate things in more narrow space compared to these wheel-based robots. It's debatable that in warehouse what kind of robot we should use, but then at least in terms of in like more narrow space, so humanoid robot has a little bit of advantage. So given this, it is almost close to working, and then also a little bit advantage. We basically actually make a lot of focus on this type of robot recently. So I'm a purely data-driven learning person guy. So everything I do is very data-driven. So you think about where you get data, right? So you can simulation data, you get demonstration data, you get human video data. So one big turning point for me is actually this work that we kind of published in the Neurips. It's actually also a work that collaborate with NVIDIA. We are doing this spatial region GPT, basically a VLM model that actually understands a very detailed distance metric very well. So this is a question basically saying, if you are riding a motorcycle with 36-inch wide, do you think you can pass through the area between 1 and 2, these two cars? And the answer is the distance between 1 and 2 is 38 inches. So yes, you can go past them. Well, it's a little bit of stretch, but then so it's doable. It's close to true, but it's not exactly.
It's plausible, but
it's
consistent.
Yes. So it will not be very accurate, but I think the important point is that this model is getting some sense of detailed distance metric, and then can reason upon them. So there's another example basically is saying what is the height of 1 and 2 respectively, and then you can measure the height. Well, not exactly 2, maybe it's more than 1.6 meters. But then which one is further away, 1 or 2, and then 2 is further away. So this might be true. Yes.
Now, of course, from a robotics perspective, these little details about whether it's 163 or 180
right.
might make actually a big difference. The same with going through these cars.
Right.
What you need to consider is also like you got to wiggle when you drive, right?
Right.
Kind of things.
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
I think so. So that's why I think this is that follows basically. I kind of basically more work on this. I feel like this two-level kind of framework that I would think this vision language model can do kind of mid-level action. So it's more like directions. So roughly these trajectories, and then you can use this vision language model to get you. But then the detailed execution, you still need to train separate low-level skills, how exactly you manipulate it, and then actually whether you can go through this thin row, like you might need some planning and also a control on it. So it is true. So we can have this rough planning with the vision language model, but it's not really GPT for planning, right? So it's not just semantic, oh, first do this and then do that kind of semantic planning. But you can go to a little bit middle level that you basically, you can go to this direction, so roughly going through these trajectories. So it will be not exactly how you execute it, but then you give you actually more a distance metric kind of location direction. So I think we can, so in general, what we try to do is try to push the large model to lower levels, and then so you can maybe do less things for the low-level controller that you can train on. So this is one attempt things that we are trying to do. And the good thing about this model is basically these VLA models can be pretty much agent agnostic because these are very general knowledge, right? So whether you can go through this, whether I can go put my hand into these things, whether I can reach this cup and then do something. So this is pretty much like agent agnostic. So we don't necessarily need to have to use robot to train this thing. So I call this mid-level VLA sort of in that sense. And then we also try to leverage human informations when training the low-level information as well. So for example, I will talk a little bit about when you do manipulations, how do we leverage actually human, not just teleoperation, but also human videos to do some dexterous skills manipulation. And then in the basically walking and whole body control part, we're also doing some imitation learning, motion imitation, and then do sim to real. So that's kind of framework that I'm actually, a lot of work that my lab did is kind of following up in this framework that we try to push the VLA, not necessarily directly output the low-level actions, but maybe try to see the limit, that how close it can be. And then have a trade-off that if we want to leverage as much data as possible, maybe we don't need to push to that low level. And then continue developing these low-level skills and manipulations and walking. So I will start from this manipulation side. So we have a teleoperation work called Open Television. So I would say this work is not exactly like in terms of VR controls, so there's many things that already developed, right? So it's well developed, and a lot of papers have done. So if we say a little cute things we do is basically it's more like a system design. So we basically first system design is we put a little head on this robot, and then this head can basically move as our VR glasses move. And then you are basically also at the time streaming wherever this head is seeing in real time into the VR glass. So this person sees what the robot exactly sees. So for example, the robot sees the back of the head of this student, and then basically it is streaming actually to the student's eyes. And then Vision Pro kind of offers very good pose estimation. So essentially, when you put your hands in front, without occlusion might affect, but then when it is without occlusions, it gets the key points very well. So essentially, you can use your some retargeting method, basically project your hand pose into the robot hand pose space, and then you can control the robot hand pose by just recording the human hands, and then at the same time, you are streaming what the robot sees from the first-person camera to this VR, so you can control it remotely. So this is examples that actually one of our collaborator, girl from MIT, he's a postdoc at MIT, he's on job market. So he's Philip Isola's postdoc, but he kind of remotely collaborated with us. So what he did is basically in MIT, he's controlling the robots at UCSD. So this is what is streaming from UCSD's video streaming real time to the MIT site, and then to basically he can control the robot remotely to do this kind of insertion task. So the latency is actually quite manageable. So you feel the latency, but it's like 0.1 second, like considering all the transmissions of the videos and also the control latency. Many people just try to adapt it a little bit. You can work on it. I will have a demo in the end that we actually bring the VR device to Corel, which is in Germany, and then we do some real-time teleop in German to control Germany to control robots at UCSD. Once we to collect demonstrations, then we can do some imitation learning. So this is some rollout. So it's very first attempt. So it's very, very naive, I would say. Like, so it's always this particular drink. So it's no generalization. So to disclose. But one thing I like a lot about this work is that if you see the head, the camera is always moving. So I guess that's actually the little innovations we basically like on this work is the very active perceptions. So essentially, here is again. So I like this a lot because I, again, come from a more vision background. So if you have ever worked with all these Ego 4D videos, like egocentric videos, it pretty much looks like this. So it's like a human hand moving around all the time, and then doing things with your hands. But this is essentially the same, but it's a robot hand instead of human hands. The policy is quite simple. It's just triggering some behavior cloning. So using some feature extractor in Dialog V2. But the interesting thing, again, the action space is not just the arm and hand actions, but also your head. So you're actually moving you have active vision. So basically, you are moving your head as you are doing manipulation. So we generalize to other tasks. Of course, SIM sorting tower is $1 million, like $100 million business. So we should fold some towers as well. So this is some examples, but it's not generalizing still. And then we have some other teleop results. So those were autonomous, but this is specifically teleop. I show these particular results is because it is give you some dexterous feelings that you can do very detailed fine-grained operations. So it's worth to mention that the egocentric vision is especially critical for these kinds of tasks. So we have in parallel other teleop projects inside the lab where people operating the robot see from the person. So the robot is here, the human is here, and then you control the robot by looking at them. So those those tools, you are actually not able to do this kind of fine-grained tasks. You actually really need to see the egocentric view of the objects to complete tasks like this. So for other teleop paper, we are basically not able to reproduce this kind of demo. Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the challenges of implementing behavior cloning for this particular task?
There's no behavior cloning for this task.
I know
Right.
there isn't, otherwise you'd have shown us.
Right.
Why not?
I think there's still, when we are collecting demonstrations, I will also introduce in the next work, it's just, it takes a lot of time to collect, maybe 1 to 2 hours to collect 50 or 100 demonstrations. So it's really limited, and then it doesn't generalize, right? So generalize across objects, generalize across objects in different locations. So that is still pretty hard, just training from demonstrations alone. So at least for the scale we are collecting data, we don't have like tens or hundreds of people collecting. Let me open that. So the limitation of the number of training data is still the key. And then you can see the boxes are placing in different places, so it's still very hard to just purely relying on learning from demonstrations to get all this. So that's the main challenge. And then I guess the context is also very, if you see clearly, right? So for some cases, when some places go wrong, you can kind of correct it, right? So this kind of self-correction is also quite hard to learn from only imitation learning. So that's why we, so that's the argument from like RL and imitation. So RL can basically encourage emerge self-corrections, and then imitation is still more overfitting to the in-distribution data, will be sensitive to outer distribution. Like when things go wrong, can you correct yourself? So that's another challenge, I would say.
I guess like you would say this is a good challenge problem for robotics to look
Yes,
at?
yes. I feel like, I mean, everyone see DeepSeek R1 and all these things. Actually, I mean, the next thing I would totally imagine is like real-world RL, right? So and then improve the self-corrections and then.
Like regardless of how you go about doing it, you think
Right.
that this is a good problem statement, like
Right.
this particular problem.
Right. Sure. Yes. All right. So yeah. So we also show this demonstration because when we work on 60-pose estimation, we always estimate the 60 pose of the Jira, if you're familiar with the task. But no one actually uses it, so we just try to use it a bit for real. So this is just for fun. And then it's have enough strength to do it, and then putting it out, and then basically that. Right. And then a little bit of precise control. So this is showing that the capability that have an egocentric vision can allow a little bit precise, but then it's not really doing the right thing. It's not supposed to touch, but that's the best we can do. So as mentioned in this work, this is a lot of demonstrations that we actually, this is a coral booth we have in back last year, and then you see here is like 10,000 kilometers away teleoperation. You basically are controlling the things in here, that controlling from Germany to UCSD to control the robot. It's not only our authors are controlling, people can walk by and sit in there, and then try a little bit and is able to pick up something. So the latency is like 0.3 seconds, so it's still very visible, but you can still do something because it's very far away, basically. So then it gets to the problem that basically it is true that we have teleop a lot, and then it's very painful. It's always also the vision pole is very heavy. So it always takes a lot of time, very painful, and robot breaks all the time. Inspire hand breaks like 10 times something, we fix many times. So then is there a very low-cost way to collect the data? So this work, we try to integrate human data in here as well. So the motivation is kind of coming from, so if you think about what we do in teleoperation, what we're doing is we have a vision pole, detect the human hands, and then human hand is doing retargeting or some 3D transformation to get the robot hand pose and then do things. So if you think about human doing things and robot doing things, it's really just a 3D transformation away, right? So it's not really that different from human operating things in the air to control robot and human doing things themselves. It's just a 3D transformation away. So that's why I see it. So can actually this human and robot thing be unified in the same space? So that's what this work is about. So we are trying to train basically policies in both more like a co-training style that we collect data in basically using also Vision Pro, but then actually collect human data. So if you, a small detail is that you actually require enterprise license to get the Vision Pro to record videos. But then once you get that, you can have very accurate hand poses and then record video with very accurate hand poses easily. So if you think about it, like what we try to claim all the time in robotics, right? So we want to learn from intellect videos and then try to do robotics tasks. And it's not realistic, honestly, because whatever people upload to YouTube, it's always funny cat videos, right? So it's just very like random and then funny videos. That's what people upload to YouTube. People don't really upload like boring doing task videos to YouTube. So it's actually very hard. Yes?
On the contrary, YouTube is extremely popular for how-to videos.
Yeah.
Which are literally videos showing people doing things that you need to do that you might want a robot to do.
Yeah, so
like
that's
fixing
like
your garage door or something.
I think there's also a how-to 100 million video data set, essentially a long video with instruction and language as well. So I would say the challenge there is it's more challenging video. The head and motion is much larger. So to utilize that video for this, we need to improve the vision a little bit. So for computer vision to pass those kind of video is still very challenging. So hand pose estimation is working very well, but that's on 2D. If you actually apply 3D hand pose estimation on those videos, it's pretty off in the depth. So 2D projection are still very good, but 3D is very hard. So there are not useful videos, there are useful videos, but it's probably hard to pass them. So that's the challenge. But in here, we basically collect data that human and robot data, they are doing the same task to simplify the problem. Even the task is aligned as the start point. And then the scenario is also easier. Your human head is not moving all the time, move a little bit. And then with Vision Pro, you have very accurate hand poses, basically. So this is like some examples of data we collect, recording from Vision Pro. So we did got to collaborate with some of the Apple people. So they have hired 3 or 4 contractors to help us collect data. So it's actually quite fast. Like we collect around 30,000 demonstrations in maybe 3 weeks. So with some contractors there. But the background is a little bit not complex or like not diverse because for some reason they cannot move the contractors around. So the contractor can only stay in one place. So it's funny that our human or robot can walk around, but then the human cannot walk around. So we collected a relatively restricted videos, but later we find if it is more diverse, it will be better. But in this case, for now, we have a larger scale and then restricted videos. And then there are multiple ways to use the Vision Pro, right? So you can, if you have enterprise license, this will be the main things we use because the Apple people, they have the license. And then if you don't have it, you just kind of mount a cassette camera on top of this Vision Pro, so to record the video. So essentially, you have these basically two types of observations. So you have the robot doing things, then you have the human doing things. So to basically show you an idea on how good the hand pose is working. So I just only have this short video. I just get back to the slides actually. So all the detection, the key points are actually detected by Vision Pro. It's pretty stable and accurate in general. Okay, then we want to basically do training with both data. Okay, so general idea is, yes.
Did you chat a little bit about like task complexity? Like, how did you decide on the task? I know
Yeah,
there's
so
a
the
lot
task is quite simple at this point. It's mostly just pick and place each grasping plus doing something.
a limitation of the acquisition, or is it a, like, how did you decide on that?
I think it's the limitations of like the imitation learning. So we want to show that you not only complete the task, but also generalize to different objects and locations. So we want to show some generalization in here. And then if you increase the complexity of the task, then the generalization part is harder. So we just not get to that yet. So that's a step.
Vision Pro is capable of capturing much more complicated.
Yeah, of course. But then self-occlusion is still a problem. If it's occluded, then it's missing it. Yeah, but the data collection itself is not a problem. It's more like the learning itself.
And are the grasps generally sort of like I close my hand, or do they involve fingertips and other stuff? Like, are the grasps of relative complexity?
So you mean like pinch grasp, like pinch grasp?
Pinch grasps or bimanual. Like, I need both my hands to pick up something. Like,
yeah, I think that works well. So we actually do a lot of pinch grasp in some tasks as well.
In this task data set, you had diverse set of grasps.
Yeah. But the right now it's not that complex because we are actually aligning. It's not very clear here, but we are aligning the robot task and the human task. So one specific task is actually just moving cup from left to right, from right to left, left to right, right to left. So the human is also doing the same thing. Robot and human are doing the same thing, basically. So I think it's specifically this video. So this video is left to right, right to left, left to right. So we want to combine these two data. So one important point is that I'm actually trying to train a human policy instead of a robot policy. So what we try to do is actually align everything into the human space. I mean, if you think about a human itself, it can be a robot, but we're actually aligning everything into human space. So we are basically trying to project all the like robot hands and all the representation into human key points. And then when we are executing the actions, we are actually outputting the human key points, where the human will do things. And then to make it work on robot, we just do retargeting and IK on the human policy output to control the robot. But at the center, the representation actually are all aligned in the human space. So I would rather call this a human policy than the robot policy. So to align the input space, what we do is basically we have this robot teleoperation things, and then we actually and then we try to convert it back to these human key points. So we actually when you doing teleoperation, you do actually get the human pose, and then you do IK to get the robot doing the thing. And then when you have robot demonstrations, when you try to convert back to the human, you basically actually do forward kinematics to convert back to the human hand poses. So you find it still big, right? So why do you first do IK and then do FK, right? So why don't you just copy the hand pose? So it turns out there's basically still some error when we are actually doing IK first. So it's not exactly accurate. So they are basically the IK and then forward kinematics that's not exactly match the original hand poses. So that's why we try to actually try to close the gap a little bit. Instead of copying the hand poses directly from a teleoperator, we first use the robot video and then do forward kinematics to get the human hand wrist pose and then also 3D hand poses. And then there's also a thing about the human videos, right? So you will realize actually the human videos, if you are operating with your hands, you are operating much faster. So your speed of doing things much faster because it's much easier. For teleoperation, you just need to try to look at it and then not breaking the robot, so you are slower. So then we basically try to do like slow motion on these human videos. There's no specific scalar So there's no fancy way to do it. We just compute roughly human video is 4 times faster, so we just do a temporal interpolation to increase the frames to 4 times more. So that's like slow down the video a little bit. So the input and of all the robots and humans videos are basically aligned in the hand pose space and the wrist joint space. And then we basically train a transformer which has some pre-train. So the model essentially takes in either a human image or the robot image, and then the hand pose as input, and then it predicts basically the legs actions, which is in the human hand space. So predicts what the human is going to do. So it's essentially a human policy. It doesn't predict what the robot is going to do. It's actually mostly predicting what the human is going to do. And then to convert what the human is going to do, what the robot is going to do, so you are essentially doing some inverse kinematics to basically the wrist pose. You can do IK, then you basically control the arms, and then the 3D hand key poses are doing retargeting to control the hands to do things. And then as for supervision, so you can use human robot data to convert to this human hand space to do supervision, or you can use the human data to directly supervise this learning. So basically, that's the general framework. I think the key idea in here is trying to say that we can train a human policy instead of robot policy. And this human policy can basically be converted to potentially converted to any robot policy by doing like a 3D transformation, either some IK, different IKs, and different retargeting. So potentially, I think we are actually extending this work for archive that we collaborate with CMU people as well. So they Guanya's lab have a lot of H1. So because we get the H1 earlier, they get the H1 later. So the two H1 actually they are different. So essentially, it's a cross embodiment kind of. We have a little bit slightly different IK and retargeting for that robot there. So we have the same policy, but we can go through different retargeting to operate on different robots. So any questions at this part? Yes?
Is there like task or goal conditioning somewhere, or is it just short?
So right now it's a very simple ACT thing. So it's actually only one policy, one task. So we tried to do like diffusion, transformer, language condition, and all these things. Doesn't work for us. So we're still trying to figure out. Every time we do diffusion policy, there's just a lot of work thing into tune, and then we end up just training an ACT for each class, each task. Yes.
One more question. Like, so at inference time, how do you get the human frame that you need for this whole step?
So at inference time, so this is closed loop control, right? So this is just used for training, right? So in inference time, you just see the robot hand in here. And
you can just condition on the robot.
Right. So you can see the model actually takes either the human image or the robot image as input. So you train on both sides of image. So you basically hope you can generalize.
Isn't your data very lopsided in favor of the human and very minimal robot data?
Well,
How do you balance your data set?
It doesn't. Yes. So it's more like importance sampling. So essentially, we still have very little human robot data. It's like 100 demonstrations for each task, and this has like maybe thousands. So we basically do importance sampling. That every batch we sample half data as robot data, half data as the human data to do training in every batch. Yeah. Yes.
On the retargeting, how brittle is it with respect to, let's say, that the robot hand actually matches also kind of the size of the human? You can rescale, but that of course changes also, like if you want to grasp objects and interact with objects, right? Like when you make contacts and stuff like that.
Right.
Does that work pretty well?
I think the retargeting is relatively robust in the sense that actually there's not much action space, right? So this is only 6 degrees of freedom. Actually, for this hand, most you do is just grasping. So even if that's wrong, that's all you can do. So there's not much space to do things. All you can do is this. So I think it doesn't affect that much, the retargeting part. But then In future, hopefully we have better hands. That's the main problem nowadays. But so we will see what happens if we have higher degree freedom. Yeah. All right. So some results, some tables, but you can just look at the last two columns. It's basically saying that if you run ACT with robot data alone in distribution, you have very close performance. The HAT is our approach, but the two approach is basically similar with some normalization term or not. But out of distribution, basically saying that in the sense of like object placed in places that has not seen in training set. So I think this is examples. So basically, what we kind of constrain the data collection in a way that, so if you see some dotted lines in this grid, so basically it's actually saying that most of the objects are placed in the set in this one, and then occasionally placed at here. So this is showing basically, if I only learn from the robot demonstrations, always place object in here, and sometimes place object in here. That's the success rate, kind of. So you got a lot of success in here. Somehow you generalize to the other side as well, but doesn't actually work for here. And then if you mix training with robot and human data, where human just place things in random places, so you generalize better to all different locations. So that's basically the kind of control experiments, I would say. It's not ideal, it's not really realistic, but this kind of control experiment showing that acting human data in here helps the reaching to different locations better. So have with a higher accuracy. So some illustration in here are basically doing robot only. So the pad does not necessarily exist. I actually explicitly asked we should record video without the pad, because the pad was using for us to just easily compute the locations and do experiments, recording success rate. But then the time I asked them to remove, the hand has broken, so we cannot record new demonstrations, but we're still waiting for the parts to come. So essentially, it helps better to generalize to new locations. And then, so this is cup passing. It's basically try to move cup from left to right, right to left. But then we kind of change the backgrounds and change the environments a little bit, which has not been seen in robot data collection time. So this is showing some kind of generalization. So again, this is still very toy, I would say, right? So it's nothing fancy, but I think it's trying to prove a concept on mixing the human data in training, so can help generalizations that beyond the robot demonstration distribution. Right.
Yeah, I guess like this is valuable in understanding that if your robot looks like a human,
right,
and acts like a human,
right,
then getting data from humans,
right,
is sort of useful.
Yeah.
But like, what if it's not?
So that's why the title is for humanoid robots.
I mean, not all humanoid robots have the same morphology as humans.
Yes, that also define humanoid robots, right? So, yeah, I think the benefits of this more human-looking like can learn from human, but I think it's okay, because if you think about it, how do we do projecting human actions to robot actions, right? So the IK part is actually we are doing IK, right? So the arms does not necessarily need to be human if we do the IK goods. And then the hand part, I think actually, even if it is a parallel jaw gripper, I think it can still do that, right? So you essentially just need to have a way to convert human pose like this to a gripper look like this. So it's not
of the complexity of the task that you're looking at?
Honestly, I don't feel like we are doing complex tasks, right? So this is, even with hands, we're still doing the tasks that pretty much gripper can do. So I don't know yet, like if we can do more complex tasks with teleop, for example. So that's a question. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. What is the robot Teleop stack here? Like, is it in particular using the same IK and retargeting pipeline? Okay.
Well, I didn't answer your question. What's the question?
So, yeah, like what is the robot Teleop stack, and does it use the same IK and retargeting pipeline for your like human policy to robot? Like, is it like, so basically is Teleop like, somehow controlling another humanoid in a leader-follower sense, or is it like a human actually does something and then you...
Yeah, so this is actually human doing something for the human data. So this is what we recorded. Sorry, there's some animation here. So this is what we recorded, right? So the human data set is really just human wearing a Vision Pro. So the function of Vision Pro is just recording the video of human doing things and also give you a very accurate hand pose estimation. So I
understand. I was asking about the robot Teleop. So how are you collecting the robot demonstrations?
Yeah, so that is this previous work. So this is, this is the same work. Yeah, it's more motivated from here because as we are doing teleoperation, it's really just feel like human is doing the same thing. So why should we not collect data of human doing the same thing? So that's right. So basically, yeah. So basically, it's like this. Just yeah. I do want to mention though, this is not again. It's new, but not that new. So we have been trying to do this kind of learning from human demonstration a few years ago. Almost every student in the list has graduated. So user has done a startup, that's made. These guys in NVIDIA, these two guys in last year. He just recently found a job. He still had 1 year. So everyone has almost graduated. It's actually like 3-4 years ago, we did very similar project. Basically, you collect demonstrations. So here is examples. So we back then we have green backgrounds and then all these YCB object data set. But pretty much looks like DEX-YCB, I would say. It's actually a little bit the same time of before after DEX-YCB. But essentially we don't have many cameras or people labeling the hand poses like DEX-YCB. So back then the hand poses are still not working very well. So I'm trying to see what is changed, right? So after 3-4 years, what has been different? Why it's working now and why it's not working then? So basically, one important thing is I think the hand poses are much better now. From Vision Pro to just real sense and then getting some software running. So the hand pose is not shaking anymore. But the object pose is still not very good. I know people might argue foundation pose works very well, but I mean, under a lot of occasions, occlusions, and different cases, still object poses are still very challenging. So vision is not solved. But then we decide we don't bother. So we just do RGB basically. We don't encode. So previously we encode everything into state, right? So hand pose are basically pose states, and then object become pose object shape, and then also pose state. We're training policy on state, but then now we try to train policy on images. So we don't bother the object pose. And then we have better hardware and teleop now. So back then I don't have actually a bimanual, also hand data collections that doing very similar hand structures and also doing data collection easily with robots. So we have better robot data now. And then we also have better legwork now. So the kind of transformer can basically consume both human data and co-train on human and robot data works well together. So just quick summarizations on what, if we do the same projects, basically do the same project again, right? So after 3 years, what has changed? So from one perspective, so these are all actually from one perspective, I feel what we are doing new. But then from comparing the old things perspective, maybe it's not so new, but these are basically the changes that have been through over the 2-3 years.
I guess one question here is, I think all of the demos you're showing, it's, I'm guessing PhD students who built the system, and it's very careful. I guess.
Right.
What do we need to figure out to go from these sort of more curated data sets to unleashing on YouTube like you want?
Yeah, at least for the human videos, we are actually fine with just educating contractors to do that. So that's still scalable. And the robot data is harder, I would say. You need some expertise. You need to do some training to not break the robots. So in terms of internet videos, I think the main bottleneck is still computer vision. Even though everyone say detection, post-estimation is solved, but it's not really not. So wherever it comes to from watching RGB videos and then getting 3D hand poses is very, very bad. It's still shaking a lot. So I think the structure of this Vision Pro is really, it has many cameras and then doing very good hand pose estimation. Not just good, but also stable, right? So it's just very crispy, stable. So that's...
Sorry, quick question.
Right.
Shaking should be an easy problem to solve, no?
You would think, yeah. So that's like, well, why don't we just do some temporal smoothing, right? So multiple frame inputs on the models, and then it should be solved. But no, it's not. Somehow, all these like video pose, hand pose, or human pose estimation is still not very, very good. So I think that's what questions Alyosha asked, like 2019. It's like, isn't that just temporal smoothing you should solve? But then still, up to now, there's no very good models that can get like smooth hand pose results. Yeah. Yes.
Do you think that it's a problem that can be solved with better hardware, like the shaking, or like you said that Apple Pro has made the pose estimation much better?
Right.
So
I think they also do very furious like data collection to train the hand pose. So they tell me they actually ran an airplane to collect data on airplane. They ran the whole train to do data collection on the whole train. So they actually do very reckless data collection to get good hand poses, like model. Yeah, so I think the distribution, but even then, so we actually have a small projects that basically try to, for this hand or other hand, we try to wear a glove on it and then see whether the Vision Pro can detect it. You cannot basically detect the hand that actually even is like human skin and human structure, but wearing a human skin glove on top of the robot hand and then try to see if Vision Pro can detect it, it cannot. So somehow there's still outer distribution does not work. Yeah, so basically, yeah. But it works much better than the things we have in general, open source. All right, so I'm not sure how much time I have. So this is actually the main message I want to talk about. I think there's a lot of space that we can do. So basically, I would then show some humanoid videos. Let's skip the approach there. But we basically do some manipulation with this guy while walking as well. So we have very good controllers. Basically, this line of work is more separation of upper body and lower body. So you basically teleop the upper body using IK and everything, and they have trained a robust policy for lower body to do walking. So this is all teleop results. So we just show some videos that you can control robots to, so potentially collect demonstrations on moving one from somewhere to another place and doing things. So this is a lot of videos. So this is in our cafeteria. So basically, one person is in the back using Vision Pro controlling this guy. So he's trying to grasp this back, and then put this back into the trash can. Let's be patient because teleoperation is slow. But it's not this guy controlling; he's just cheering. But basically, there's this guy in the end who is wearing a Vision Pro, basically controlling the robot to put the things into the trash can. Right. So that's the one teleop demonstrations of what we can do. So I want to skip some of these videos if you are interested. It's online. But essentially, we Go is in NIT, so we always do this remote teleop. So there's a little bit acting in here, to be honest. You don't have to be that reflected. So there's a little bit acting in here. And then Xixing was visiting his girlfriend in Michigan, so I would say, why not do this from Michigan as well? So that's what a lot of video recorded. So the problem of this guy is basically, it's actually quite limiting in the sense that it's only doing walking for the lower body and then doing something on top. So it's not really whole body control that is coordinating whole body to do things. So we do also have something that we tried that is actually doing the whole body motions imitation. So this is kinds of dancing videos. It's not using vision anything. It's actually really just playing the trajectory, but the human kind of just coordinate with it. So there's no feedback actually from the observing the human. But it shows that we can do lateral motions in different places and locations. So the G1 robot is pretty nice. So it's actually it's less heavy and then it breaks much less. So we like it. So I might need to skip some of the approach, but we basically, the center idea of this is we are training from the CMU mocap data set. So we learn from a lot of human motions, which is retargeting to robot motions. But then the problem is that training an RL policy to track all the motions are very challenging because they're actually essentially in very different distribution. You can think of it, there are different modes of motions inside the CMU mocap data set. There's extreme motion, there's not so moving much motion. If you just train an RL policy on top, it's very hard to generalize to everything. So we are trying to basically do some data curation that we find out, filter out, have an automatic way to filter out some of the motions that is not so crazy but not so static. So in finding a middle point. So after training on that, you can generalize to more different poses. So that's basically the general idea in here. I'm going to skip some of these things, but essentially, so these are some results that we are trying to. So essentially, you can have a human pose and then retargeting and then train a policy basically to imitate the human pose and then try to deploy in the real world. So this is a style walking. If you compare these two videos, actually the difference is not so large. So it's almost the same. But then there's still some differences between these two videos, right? So the retargeting part, motion retargeting is something actually we can still improve, right? So this is kind of bending down is actually okay, but then this part is something that we can still improve. So basically, so you can do some real-time retargeting as well. So detect the humans and then do some motions like this. So one thing I do want to mention is that compared to two approaches, right? So this is trying to you see, it's not an easy job, basically, still like picking up the box. So one thing I want to mention, and it's ongoing work I'm not presenting today, but essentially, this work is only walking plus manipulation. Okay, so you cannot do this, right? So you cannot do this. It's only walking. And this walk, you can do this, right? You can kind of do this and coordinate whole body. But the problem is that your upper body is doing RL to do tracking and doesn't allow very precise manipulation. So some ongoing future work we are doing is basically how do you sort of allow precise upper body training control, but then still do very whole body coordinations. So using every degree of freedom, but again, maintaining the precise control for the upper body. So this is some ongoing thing we are doing, which I have not shown here. And then finally, hopefully I still have a few minutes that we back to the VLA stories. So this is actually Navila is a work that, again, because NVIDIA has this VLM model called Vila, and then we do navigation on top, so we call it Navila. So this is lag robot navigation framework. So this is my house. So I'm doing all experiments in my house. So essentially, this is giving a language, and then you need to follow a language instruction. So this is actually going to my office. But essentially, this is the egocentric view the robot see. And then the VLA outputs, basically, the action is turn right 30 degrees, move forward 25 centimeters, and things like that. So in here, we basically proposed a two-level framework that the VLA essentially is training not outputted actions, the locomotion action directly, but more outputs more like a mid-level action, like I mentioned in the very beginning. So it's like move forward 75 centimeters, or turning some degrees in the form of language, basically. And then these commands can be later basically connect to a low-level policy that convert this language into velocity commands and then do the low-level control. So this two-level framework has the benefit, for example, how do you run things on board, right? So in this case, you can basically run the VLA in like 2 Hertz. It's still very expensive running this thing. We end up actually cannot run this on board. Even working with Song's team on all this quantization and like efficient and whatever it is, still cannot make the VLA work on board. So we end up just attach a phone on the robot and then send the image back to our desktop and then run the VLA and send the action back through the phone and then get to the robot. So the VLA is actually running on the desktop, and then but the locomotion policy can run on board. So it can be applied to many different robots. It's just like you're training a single VLA. It's agent elastic. You can do many different robots. And then the most important interesting thing I like about this work is that you essentially can train this VLA with many data because your action is actually in the form of language. So you can still train with the VLM data wherever VLA is trained on. So the common sense, like question answering data, you are still training on that together. So training this navigation and those data together, and even human videos together, because the output is all in the language space. So that's the more interesting thing I like this work is that it's not really just a VLA. It's actually a VLM, but just part of the QA is about action. So it's more like a VLM flavor of work. So if you look at all this VLA work nowadays, it's all actually training on only robots, fine-tuning on only robots, and then specifically doing those robot tasks. Maybe transfer to new scene, new robot, it doesn't work. But in here, it's actually more VLM. We basically have some videos. So this is essentially real state 10K videos. If you work on vision, you know that this used to be a data set we do a lot of real synthesis on, but essentially it's like just you're taking a camera, walking in the room. We find a way to caption these videos. Basically caption it. The legs action is moving forward some degrees, rotate some degrees, and move forward some centimeters. We are able to caption these videos. So essentially we're basically not just training on this habitat or whatever simulation environment, but also training on this video as well. So it's more agent elastic. And then, so here is some demonstrations that we apply. So you see it actually stop a little bit because the latency caused by the VLM. So we need to transmit the image to the desktop and infer the actions, and then put it back to the robot. So this is our lab, basically, that we. This is saying that walk to the end of the room and then turn left and find toy kitchen set, which is one of the IKEA kitchen sets, which we will see soon. And then this is again my home again. So we because it's leg robot, we try to show that you can walk outside and also walk over these some barriers. So I said there is also an obstacle avoidance. So you kind of avoid these columns in here in the end, and then right. So it's not very smooth. So because of VLA, but this is so you can also see the phone is attached to transmit to the desktop compute. But essentially that's the soccer, go to the soccer site. And then so we have some. So this is the thing that I like a lot. Basically, it's the same vision language action model or vision language model that can do this QA task. So essentially, you take in multiple frames and then ask the question, where does the trash can set is you can answer to right of the toilet. So it's not just actually a VLA. You still can do the original VLM tasks. So it has multitask. Yes?
You might have gone over this before, but you mentioned like human video data and then about like recording rooms and scenes.
Right.
Is there any translation between like video game simulation data that you can capture as well, which is like one-to-one to human video data? Like are they the same in
So what is the question? Like
is like video game simulation data the same as like human captured data?
So essentially, we do train on the simulation data as well. So so the policy is also trained on the habitat, like navigation environments. So it's part of the training data. So I will hope all these video game simulation data can be used because they are more realistic compared to the habitat. So yeah.
When you say habitat, what is that?
So it's like a navigation kind of benchmark and simulation environments. So it's scanning a lot of rooms, like 3D rooms into the simulator, and then you can have an agent walk around, do some planning to navigate around the rooms. So we have a new toy called Booster Robot, and then this is actually, we make some interface. It's very hard to hear, but he is trying to do an audio input, and then you convert the audio into language, and then this guy can follow instruction to move. So we do some demos on this. It's stopping because, again, the VLA is still slow. I like this robot, actually. So I think somehow it's a little bit shorter than G1, but then it's more robust. It actually has larger feet. So in terms of stable walking, this robot is pretty good.
Hey, robot, before and actually the office area, the turn line is not near the booth.
It's a very long, but essentially, yeah. So you get the idea. It's trying to take the audio inputs and then do some actions. Okay. Let me finish it, and then I think I'm almost done. So it's trying to get to the trash can. So you see the trash can, and then getting close to it. Oops.
There's no depth perception, right? It's pure.
Yeah, pure RGB actually in here. Yeah. Yeah, so that's all. I can skip this. Yeah, so quick summary. We talk about some low level. So I still quite believe in this framework that we can do VLA and then low level. I haven't get into touch this part on manipulation yet, but this is something we are also trying to push, that we can do VLA for manipulation, but mid-level action as well, and then try to collect some low-level manipulation skills. So that's all. Thank you. Thank you.
Questions?
So the question is like, what are the barriers? It seems to me that a big one, maybe the biggest one, is that you're still not generalizing very far from the training data. You need to generalize much farther.
Right.
What would it take to do that?
I'm a little bit more optimistic because I saw the derivative, the momentum kind of, because in terms of hardware, I think from last year to now, we see like very, very fast developments, because I used to work on this robot. So this part get overheat all the time. And then now there's no problem with this robot. So in terms of hardware, I think it's like running our algorithms. So because the company themselves also do RL, so they know what the problem is. They are developing better and better hardware for learning. So hardware is improving. That's very encouraging. And this, so I saw the derivative basically. The progress for the past 1 year for that is very fast. And then in terms of data collections, we just started. So for these actually Apple collaborations, so at least my collaborator claimed he has 1,000 Vision Pro already in his under him, so he can just distribute all this Vision Pro to all the employees in Apple to collect data. But we need to first prove concept first. So besides Apple's, there's also like Aria Glass, like Meta people do. It's also, we have a separate collaborator projects for that, but use actually a simpler glass, achieving similar functions, and then so that is progressing as well. So I would say the human data collection side is quite optimistic that we can do a lot of diverse scenes and a lot of people helping to collect data. So I see the trend is going very well. So that's why.
But your answer to the question, how do you generalize further from the data, is just collect more data?
Right. So we do, for example, I didn't mention this side. We still try to do sim to real. So for me, it's all about data. So data in real, data in sim, they are all part of the data. So we still need data in real because sim to real is still very hard to work. But then the hope is that with such large-scale diverse real data, and then even billion-scale large sim data, then it can generalize. So eventually, we might still need to rely on sim, real to sim, sim to real, whatever. But then right now, we see it's very beneficial to collect a lot of real data. It's sort of scalable. It's not that crazy scalable as ChatGPT data level. But then this sim data will be like ChatGPT data level kind of scalable. So I think eventually we will need to leverage them, but we are still in the stage that scaling a lot of real data keep improving. And then at some point, we will need to leverage this as well. Yeah. Right. Yes.
So did you see like performance difference between when you were deploying like same controller on bigger humanoid robots versus like small humanoid robots?
Yeah, significant. I think the physical gap definitely is, sim to real gap is definitely smaller for the smaller robot. The smaller robot you get, the less gap you have. If you work on this size robot, you have very little sim to real gap. So definitely we already observed so many things that we used to think it will work for the larger robot, it doesn't. And then we tried the method now on the smaller one, it works well. So I think the smaller one definitely helps, like kind of make the sim to real gap smaller. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
one last question.
Okay.
So do you think that relying more on RGB data and like less on other sorts of modalities or data is the way to go, or?
That's a good question. That goes to the in general to the actually not just robotics but vision as well. So right now, training on vision language model, we actually mostly do RGB data. That's the most data we have. So right now, people are saying, oh, we need to train 3D vision language model, right? So, but then it turns out it's very, very hard to get like multi-view 3D data, very limited number of data. So we used to do a lot of nerve and 3D Gaussians and this and that. But then as we enter the VLM age, all this method doesn't seem like very scalable. So what turns out happened is people try to do depth estimation, right? So the stereo, whatever Bowen was doing, so get stereo from single image, and then use these two modalities put in the VLM. So the way I see it, maybe depth RGBD is still the scalable way, but maybe the depth does not necessarily need to be captured from the sensors. It could be maybe inferred from the models. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.